It's December, which means NaNoWriMo is finally over. Whew, thank goodness. This year was a very different experience than last year. While I did still enjoy it, and I'm glad that I did it, it definitely was not as easy as it was the first time around, which seems a little bit counterintuitive. You would think that having done it before, it would be easier to do it again. I think the problem is that, first of all, I've been writing pretty consistently, not at NaNoWriMo type speeds, but pretty consistently on a daily or at least multiple times a week kind of basis since July. And so trying to tack NaNoWriMo onto the end of that and have it be like, you're going to do even more when I've already been doing quite a bit over a period of time, I think that probably didn't work. Last year when I did NaNoWriMo in November of 2021, it was the first time that I had sat down and tried to write a long-form fiction work in, I don't even know how long, more than a year. And this July when I did Camp NaNoWriMo, I didn't write a novel for that, I wrote short stories, but those were the first thing that I had written on a, write every day, write large amounts of fiction kind of basis since November of the previous year. Aside from just attempts to finish what I had started that November, which, I mean, that happened slowly over the course of a couple of months. So I think one of the things that I learned from this is that if I'm going to do a super intense writing project along the lines of NaNoWriMo, I need to take a break before I do. The second thing that I learned this month is that I am not a write by the seat of your pants kind of writer. Now, I already knew that, but I guess I didn't really understand to what extent. I did have a plan going into this month. I'm expanding a short story that I wrote in July into a longer work, and I already had an outline, but it was a very vague, here's what's going to happen in the beginning of the story, here's what's going to happen throughout the middle, here's how it's going to end kind of outline. When I did this in November of 2021, I had a chapter-by-chapter outline that went into a lot of detail. Not just the events, but whose point of view it's from, what the characters' emotional responses should be, what the impact is on the greater scheme of things, the overarching story. If there's anything that needed to be foreshadowed in that chapter to set up for what was going to happen later. For this month, I didn't have a chapter-by-chapter outline at all. All I had was major plot points that I wanted to hit and some details on what the characters' emotional journeys or character arcs should be in the big picture. And that made it really hard to figure out, okay, I know where this is going, but what happens next? So I think next time I attempt something like this, I'm definitely going to have a much more detailed outline going into it. And even for this, before I do anything else to try and finish it, I'm going to go through and make an outline of what I have written and how it fits into the big picture, and then fill in the chapters that I need and all that detail that I was wanting that I didn't have. The third thing that I learned this month, though, is that I can do it even when it's not ideal. Because I did win NaNoWriMo despite all of the difficulties from my own lack of preparation and the burnout that I started to experience partway through the month. Now, I just barely hit 50,000 words. I think it's 50,100 something, which is very different from almost 60,000 last November and over 70,000 in July. And I only hit 50,000 words on the very last day, November 30th. I'm also not even close to being done. In fact, I would say I'm only about halfway through, or maybe a little bit less than that even. But having the goal of writing 50,000 words in a month did definitely help me to power through, even when I was getting a little bit discouraged, not quite sure what to write next, or a little bit tired of all the writing. I got to the second to last day and I was like, I have 3,000 more words to write. I'm not gonna lose NaNoWriMo by 3,000 words. I tend to get a little bit competitive in that kind of way, and so I think that really helped to push me through, even though really the difference of 3,000 words is not a huge amount in terms of the novel. Just wanting the little bar to turn purple and for the website to tell me that I'd won was enough to keep me going until the end. So I guess my main takeaways from this are that the NaNoWriMo writing process does work for me, even when it's not under quite ideal circumstances, but that I really do need that detailed chapter-by-chapter outline, and that November and maybe January, if necessary, I need to be working on making a better outline for this, because I don't know that I'm ever going to finish it if I keep going with just that loose, big picture kind of one that I have. I think it'll also be beneficial for me to take a break from the writing, focus on the outlining, and go back to the writing when it doesn't feel like a chore, because it had gotten to where it felt like a chore by the end of November, and I don't want that. I do writing purely for personal enjoyment. I would love to publish it at some point, but as of right now, I'm not a published author and I'm not making any money off of these stories, so it needs to be fun or it's not worth doing. And that means that right now I need to take a break and come back to it maybe in January or February. So that was my NaNoWriMo experience. Did you do NaNoWriMo this year? What was yours like? Feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. And if you liked this video and you'd like to see more from me, be sure to subscribe. I post new videos every Monday and Thursday.